Hello everyone, my name is Nick. You may know me as Hello Insomnia, and today I want to bring you guys a new little video series I was thinking about doing, talking about the different coding conventions in Ubot Studio, or as I see them, because there is no real established conventions yet, but I'm hoping that maybe together as a community we could create some, and I'm going to make some videos just showing what I think they should be, and then hopefully in the future it will sort of help bring everybody up and we can all kind of come and agree on some different conventions that will allow us to all make better programs. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's talk about what in the world coding conventions are. So according to Wikipedia, they are a set of guidelines for a specific programming language that recommended programming style practices and methods for each aspect of a program written in that language. Basically, what coding conventions are is a set of guidelines. So one thing I'll talk about a little bit later is the fact that these are guidelines. Everything that I'm going to say in this course is just a recommendation, not necessarily a set in stone rule. Okay? So now that you have a general idea of what coding conventions are, let's look at some topics. Keep in mind this is semi-casual, so nothing's really set in stone. These may change, but this is what I have so far, and hopefully there will be more. First one, naming conventions. Super important thing, and that will most likely be the next video. Second one, commands and functions, which and when. This doesn't give much insight, I know, but I do have a little bit planned for what I want to talk about related to commands and functions, and it has nothing to do with like this is how you use a command or a function. In fact, most of this series has nothing to do with that kind of thing, by the way. If you're here to learn about how do I use this one kind of command or this one kind of function, that's not really what this is about. This is more about design theory and concepts and like the architecture of how are we building our programs and things like that. So it's a lot more theory related and a lot less practical stuff. I want to talk about refactoring. Super important thing that probably gets looked over quite a bit in our own community, as well as unit testing. I bet most people don't even know that you can do this inside of Ubot. I've almost never seen it talked about except for like a year or two ago when they first introduced it. They wrote like 3 blog posts. I think somebody may have linked it in the forum, and that was it. Never heard about it again. And more, of course. Again, this is going to be a kind of casual thing. This is most likely going to be the only video like this, by the way. I don't really like making slideshows. I'd much rather be inside of Ubot, but for this particular video, it makes sense because we're going to be reading a couple quotes and stuff. Alright. But first, why? Why are we doing all of this? Why are we thinking about all of this? And when I bring up some of these topics, you're going to look at the amount of extra work you have to do initially and think to yourself, why in the world would I do anything like this? And that's something that I wondered until I met entropy. Entropy is the main reason why we want to do this. So what is that? That's what I was wondering at first as well. Well, according to Webster, entropy is a process of degradation or running down or a trend to disorder. And let's just jump right to the next slide. More specifically for software, according to Webopedia, it is the tendency for software over time to become difficult and costly to maintain. A software system that undergoes continuous change, such as having new functionality added to its original design, will eventually become more complex and can become disorganized as it grows, losing its original design structure. So this is something that I'm all too familiar with because I've created big programs before, I've had to maintain them before, and it's something that I've struggled with over the years, And so lately I've been just doing a lot more research into just theory stuff, not syntax related things. You know, when I first took up C# again, one of the mistakes I think that I've made was I was like, I just need to memorize all this code. And that's not true. And it's the same with Ubot. You know what? You can learn the syntax side of things. It's not difficult. And if you're newer to Ubot, then don't worry about it if you don't know what a command or a function is, things like that, because you can learn that stuff. It's very easy. It's mostly just repetition. The way that you learn syntax or new languages in general is typically by using it, right? And so once you start building more programs, you get more familiar with the syntax. That part of it becomes easy. And because of that, you may think that you know a lot or you know everything even, when in fact there's a whole nother side to it that doesn't get talked about as much, especially, I mean, at least in the Ubot world, this doesn't really get talked about as much. And that's really the theory part. And that is what we're going to talk about more in this series. And finally, technical debt. So technical debt, it basically is this sort of debt that builds up over time if you are not careful about doing things correctly as you're adding more features and making changes to the software and things like that. You can look it up. Wikipedia's got a great definition, but in short, it basically says that as you add more features, it's easy to just do the thing that gets the job done quickest. And when you do that, you build up your technical debt. And eventually, that could cause problems because it's just going to lead to entropy, basically. All right. So finally, again, I want to reiterate, these are guidelines. They're not rules. So the things that we talk about are things that either I'm suggesting or that I got from other, software theory related things. I mean, I didn't make all this stuff up myself. I'm just going to try and do my best to translate bits of it to Ubot theory. That's all. And no matter what, be consistent. If I tell you to name something a certain way, again, I'm just giving you a guideline. You can name it however you feel is right, especially if you're only working alone. If you're working with others, I highly suggest you establish beforehand a set of guidelines for, say, naming things, right? But no matter what, be consistent. That's the most important thing. All right? So I will see you guys in the next video.